a story about regret. Some mistakes you can fix. Others, they haunt you forever. This is a story about one of those mistakes. About a restaurant that made the wrong move, a waiter who didn't know better, a moment of disrespect that turned into a lifetime of regret. Because when you don't recognize greatness sitting right in front of you, sometimes you don't get a second chance. And trust me, this is one of those stories you won't want to miss. Follow Mazer Bro to hear what happened next. Some mistakes you can fix. Others, they haunt you forever. It was supposed to be a regular evening at La Riviere, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Los Angeles. The kind of place where reservations are booked months in advance, where waiters glide between tables with rehearsed elegance, and where the rich and powerful gather to indulge in overpriced wine and Wagyu steaks. That night, the dining room was packed. Celebrities, CEOs, and socialites, all comfortably sinking into their high-backed leather chairs, clinking glasses, and exchanging casual conversations about multi-million-dollar deals. And then a man walked in. He wasn't dressed like the usual clientele. No tailored suit, no gold watch flashing under the dim chandelier light. Just a black turtleneck, a worn leather jacket, and an air of quiet confidence. His movements were slow, deliberate, like a man who knew exactly who he was and had nothing to prove. Sylvester Stallone. Except that night, no one seemed to notice. Or, more accurately, no one cared. He scanned the room, then made his way to an empty table by the window. The city lights flickered outside, reflecting off the polished glass. He sat down, flipping open the menu. Minutes passed. Waiters moved around him, tending to other tables, refilling wine glasses, taking orders with warm, rehearsed smiles. But not one of them came to his table. Not one. Stallone leaned back, waiting. Another 5 minutes. His eyes locked onto a waiter passing by. A young man, maybe in his early 20s, with slick back hair and a look of self-importance that only someone working at an expensive restaurant could wear. Stallone raised a hand slightly, just enough to signal. The waiter's gaze flickered to him for half a second. Then he turned away, ignored him completely. Stallone's jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. At the next table over, a well-dressed couple waved the same waiter down. "We'll take another bottle of the 82 Chateau Margaux," the man said, not even glancing up from his conversation. The waiter nodded enthusiastically and hurried off, without so much as acknowledging Stallone. At this point, it was obvious. This wasn't an accident. Stallone sighed, placing the menu down, then stood up and walked toward the bar. Behind the counter, another waiter, this one older, more polished, was wiping down a crystal glass. Stallone placed a hand on the bar and gave him a nod. "Hey, can I get a drink?" The bartender didn't even look up. "Bar's closed for the night." Stallone frowned, glancing at the shelves lined with expensive bottles. "Really? Because it looks open to me." The bartender sighed, finally meeting his eyes with a tired, indifferent expression. "Sorry, sir. It's closed." A pause. Stallone exhaled through his nose, his expression unreadable. Then, finally, he gave a small nod. "Got it." He turned, walked back toward the entrance, and without another word, pushed open the heavy doors and stepped outside. And just like that, he was gone. Inside, the restaurant carried on as if nothing had happened. Plates clattered, conversations hummed, and champagne bottles popped open with practiced ease. It wasn't until a few minutes later that someone at one of the corner tables, an older man in a crisp navy suit, lowered his glass, furrowed his brows, and leaned toward his companion. "Wait, was that?" The realization spread like wildfire. A hushed murmur swept across the dining room. Waiters exchanged nervous glances. A manager, standing near the host's podium, suddenly looked like he had swallowed a lemon. Because now they knew. Now they realized. They had just turned away Sylvester Stallone. And they had no idea what kind of mistake they had just made. Follow Mazer Bro to see what happened next. Some mistakes you can fix. Others, they haunt you forever. A heavy silence settled over La Riviere. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the low hum of conversation. It all continued, but something had shifted. At first, only a few people noticed. A whisper here, a glance there. But then, a name floated through the air like a spark in a dry forest. Was that Stallone? Wait, the Stallone? The realization spread in waves. The well-dressed couple who had just ordered their second bottle of Chateau Margaux exchanged looks. A group of young executives at the corner table, mid-toast, froze as one of them muttered, "Are you serious?" That was him. The maitre d', a man named Richard with decades of experience in the industry, felt his stomach tighten. He turned sharply toward the nearest waiter. Did he dine here? The waiter, the same one who had ignored Stallone, shrugged. Nah. Guy walked in like he owned the place, so I figured he wasn't our usual crowd. Told him we were full. Richard paled. You turned him away? The waiter frowned. I mean, yeah. Looked like just some random dude. The maitre d' clenched his jaw so tightly his temples throbbed. Some random dude. Some random dude who had written his own ticket to Hollywood. Some random dude whose name was etched into cinema history. Some random dude whose movies had grossed over $4 billion worldwide. Richard turned toward the bar. Please tell me we at least offered him a drink. The bartender, who had been polishing a glass, suddenly found great interest in the floor. Well, he asked, but I told him we were closed. Richard felt a cold sweat forming at the base of his neck. The bar wasn't closed. I mean, technically, but I didn't think. You didn't think? Richard hissed. His mind raced. There was still time. Maybe Stallone was just outside. Maybe he could fix this. Without another word, he spun on his heel and practically sprinted toward the entrance, pushing past the confused hostess. He threw open the doors, stepping out into the cool Los Angeles night, and saw nothing, just the usual late-night city crowd. People walking, talking, lost in their own world. Stallone was gone. Richard exhaled sharply, running a hand down his face. Back inside, the murmur had turned into something louder. The guests were talking now, really talking. A few had even pulled out their phones. Some were texting, others were scrolling. And then, a voice cut through the noise. Oh my God, it's already on Twitter. Richard turned, his stomach dropping. A young woman at one of the booths had her phone out, eyes wide as she read from the screen. An A-list celebrity just got turned away from La Riviere. The manager had no clue who they were. An absolute PR nightmare is incoming. #Stallone, #fail. Richard's pulse pounded in his ears. Who posted that? Dunno, but it's getting retweeted like crazy. He swallowed hard, then reached for his own phone. His fingers hovered over the screen before he forced himself to type into Google. Stallone restaurant. Nothing yet, but he knew how fast these things moved. And just as he feared, seconds later, another voice rang out from across the room. Dude, TMZ just posted it. Richard felt like he was sinking into the floor. He turned back toward the bar, locking eyes with the bartender. Do you have any idea what you just did? The bartender shifted uncomfortably. I mean, it's not like he announced who he was. Richard almost laughed. He's Sylvester Stallone. He doesn't have to. The murmur had now turned into a full-blown commotion. Some guests were refreshing their feeds. Others were whispering excitedly. A few had already left, shaking their heads as they walked out. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a disaster. And across the city, in a quiet, dimly lit hotel suite, the man at the center of it all sat back in his chair, sipping a glass of whiskey, watching the chaos unfold on his phone with an amused smirk. Because Stallone wasn't angry. No, he had been in Hollywood too long to be angry about something like this. He was waiting to see just how badly this restaurant was about to regret their mistake. Follow Mazer Bro to see what happened next. Some mistakes you can fix. Others? They haunt you forever. By the time the clock struck midnight, the scandal had already spread like wildfire. It started with whispers at La Riviere, a few hushed conversations, a couple of guests sneaking glances at their phones. But within an hour, the news had exploded across social media. #StalloneSnubbed was trending. The tweets were brutal. Imagine being a waiter at some overpriced LA restaurant and thinking you're too good to serve Rocky. Y'all ever reject an A-list legend and ruin your own career in one night? La Riviere just did. Someone give me the name of that waiter. I need to see what unemployed looks like in real time. The comments weren't any kinder. Instagram posts dissected every detail of the incident. TikTok was already flooded with reaction videos. And then, the news broke into mainstream media. TMZ. Sly Stallone gets snubbed at exclusive LA restaurant. Staff had no idea who he was. Variety. La Riviere faces PR nightmare after turning away Hollywood legend. Hollywood reporter. The moment you realize you just denied service to Rambo. It wasn't just gossip. It was a disaster. Back at La Riviere, the atmosphere had shifted from quiet concern to full-blown panic. Richard, the maitre d', paced behind the hostess stand, phone glued to his ear. I don't care what it takes. Just get me in touch with his people. I need to fix this. Now, the restaurant's owner, a sharp-dressed man in his 50s named Vincent Moreau, stood nearby, arms crossed, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like he might crack a tooth. How the hell did this happen? He demanded. No one had a good answer. The waiter who had ignored Stallone was now standing off to the side, pale and visibly sweating. The bartender who had dismissed him had gone quiet, looking like a man awaiting execution. Richard ran a hand through his graying hair, exhaling sharply. All right, damage control. We need a statement. Vincent scoffed. A statement? No, we need Stallone to come back. We need photos of him here, smiling, drinking, and shaking hand with the staff. We need to show the world this was all a misunderstanding. Richard nodded. That's why I'm calling his team. He turned his attention back to the phone, listening as it rang, once, twice. Then, a voice. Stallone's office. Richard swallowed. Hi, yes. My name is Richard Lemaire. I'm the maitre d' at La Riviere. We had Mr. Stallone at our restaurant earlier tonight, and I believe there was some confusion. Silence. Then, the dry chuckle. Oh, there was definitely some confusion. Richard forced a smile into his voice. We like to make things right. A private dinner on the house. Any time that's convenient for Mr. Stallone. Another pause. I'll pass the message along. Click. The line went dead. Richard stared at his phone, his stomach twisting. That wasn't good. That wasn't nearly good enough. Vincent arched a brow. Well? Richard hesitated. They'll pass the message along. Vincent let out a slow exhale, rubbing his temples. So we're screwed. Richard didn't answer. Because the truth was? Yeah, they were. Meanwhile, across the city, Stallone sat in his penthouse suite, phone buzzing with notifications, his social media manager standing nearby, shaking his head in disbelief. They're really losing their minds over this. Stallone smirked. People love a good underdog story, even when it's not in a movie. He took another sip of whiskey, scrolling through the chaos. The memes had already started. One had a photo of the young waiter looking smug with the caption, "Tell Stallone there are no available tables. Still waiting for his next paycheck." Another showed a clip from Rocky, but with the words edited. Yo, Adrian, they wouldn't even let me order a drink. His manager glanced at him. They're going to call. Beg, probably. Stallone chuckled. They already did. And? He set his glass down. Told him I'd think about it. The manager smirked. So what's the plan? Stallone leaned back, thoughtful. Let him sweat a little. Because this wasn't just about dinner. This was about respect. And he wasn't about to let La Riviere forget that anytime soon. Follow Mazur Bro to see what happens next. Some mistakes you can fix. Others? They haunt you forever. By the next morning, La Riviere was in full crisis mode. What had started as a minor incident had snowballed into a public relations disaster. Social media was relentless. Mainstream media had picked up the story, and now, it wasn't just about a restaurant snubbing Sylvester Stallone. It was about arrogance, elitism, and Hollywood disrespecting its own legends. Vincent Moreau, the restaurant's owner, stormed into the dining room, where his management team sat in a tense meeting. As he responded, he barked. The maitre d', Richard, shook his head. No calls back. No texts. Nothing. Vincent slammed a fist onto the table. We need a statement. Right now. We already drafted something, Richard said, sliding over his phone. Vincent read aloud. La Riviere deeply regrets the misunderstanding involving Mr. Sylvester Stallone. Our staff did not recognize him, and this was in no way intentional. We sincerely apologize and would love the opportunity to welcome him back and make this right. Silence. Then Vincent scoffed. That's weak. It's an apology, Richard argued. It's a PR move and a bad one. We need something bigger. He turned to his assistant. Book a table. No, book the table. I want a private VIP dinner, fully comped, whatever he wants. And I want the media to see it. Call his team. Beg if you have to. The assistant hesitated. Sir, I don't think you want a free dinner. Vincent narrowed his eyes. Everyone has a price. Richard exhaled sharply, looking at his phone again. Have you seen Twitter? It's not just about a missed dinner anymore. People are calling it the ultimate Hollywood snub. They're talking about how the new generation has no respect for the legends who built this industry. Vincent ran a hand through his graying hair. So what? It's just online noise. It'll die down in a few days. Richard shook his head. Not this time. Stallone isn't some washed-up actor. He's a cultural icon. And the fact that we didn't recognize him, it's not just embarrassing, it's insulting. Vincent cursed under his breath, then pointed at his assistant. Find him. Now. Meanwhile, Stallone was already 3 steps ahead. He wasn't the type to seek revenge. That wasn't his style. But he also wasn't the type to let disrespect slide. His phone buzzed. Another notification. This one is from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold, heard what happened. You want me to walk in and see if they recognize me? Stallone chuckled, shaking his head as he typed back. Stallone, tempting, but I got a better idea. Because while La Riviere was scrambling to do damage control, he had already decided how this story was going to end. And it wasn't going to end with a fake apology or a free meal. Back at La Riviere, the phone call finally came in. Richard practically leaped to answer it. Hello. Thank you for calling us back. We'd love to invite Mr. Stallone to. A calm, professional voice cut him off. He's not interested in a dinner. Richard swallowed. Look, we really regret what happened. We want to make this right. A pause. Mr. Stallone isn't looking for an apology. He's already moved on. Richard's stomach twisted. This was worse than anger. This was indifference. So what happens now? The voice on the other end of the line was polite, almost amused. You'll find out soon enough. Click. The line went dead. Richard slowly lowered the phone. Across the room, Vincent frowned. Well, what do they say? Richard looked up. They said he's moved on. Vincent exhaled in relief. Good. That means we're in the clear. But Richard wasn't so sure, because something about the way Stallone's team had said it didn't sit right. Something told him that whatever was coming next, it was going to be big. Follow Mazur Bro to see what happens next. Some mistakes you can fix. Others, they haunt you forever. By the time the sun set over Los Angeles, La Riviere's reputation was already hanging by a thread. The media storm hadn't just continued, it had escalated. Late-night talk show hosts were cracking jokes about it. You know you've messed up when even Rocky Balboa can't get a table. I mean, what's next? Are they going to tell Tom Hanks to wait outside? Celebrity influencers had jumped in, posting sarcastic videos of themselves trying to get into the restaurant. One TikToker walked in wearing a Rambo headband and said, Hey, I don't have a reservation, but I've only made, like, a couple billion at the box office. Can I get a table? The comments were ruthless. The fact that Stallone hasn't even responded makes this even funnier. He's just letting them self-destruct. La Riviere is about to be the emptiest restaurant in LA. And then the real nightmare hit. Because while Vincent Moreau, the owner, thought this would all blow over, Stallone had already made his move. The announcement. It started with a single post on Stallone's Instagram. No long caption, no rant, no passive-aggressive message. Just a photo. Him standing in front of a different restaurant, one of LA's most beloved Italian spots. The caption? Where they know how to treat people right. That was it. Within minutes, the restaurant's Instagram was flooded. This is where we're eating from now on. Stallone approved? Say no more. La Riviere who? The post went viral. And then the real blow came. Because the restaurant Stallone promoted, it wasn't just any restaurant. It was one owned by his longtime friend and business partner, a direct competitor to La Riviere. La Riviere starts to crumble. Inside La Riviere, the atmosphere was tense. The reservation book, normally packed weeks in advance, suddenly had cancellations flooding in, one after another. The restaurant's Instagram comments were a war zone. Not eating here until you all apologize properly. Might want to recognize your guests next time. I'd rather eat at a gas station. Even worse, A-list celebrities were now posting their own experiences. Not surprised. I got treated like an extra here once. They act like they're the ones with Oscars. Richard, the maitre d', watched it all unfold with a sinking feeling in his gut. He turned to Vincent. We need to respond. Vincent was already on the phone, barking orders. We're setting up an interview. Damage control. We need to get ahead of this. But it was too late. Because what happened next? That was the final nail in the coffin. The final blow. That evening, Stallone finally broke his silence. He was leaving a movie premiere, paparazzi flashing cameras in his face. A reporter stepped forward, mic in hand. Mr. Stallone, any thoughts on what happened at La Riviere? Stallone grinned. The kind of grin that meant he had already won. Not, I think they've got enough problems already. The reporters erupted. Laughter. Camera shutters clicking. Headlines writing themselves in real time. And just like that, La Riviere was finished. The fallout. Within a week, the restaurant saw a 30% drop in reservations. Within a month, major food critics were pulling their support, calling it an outdated place with an inflated ego. By the end of the quarter, La Riviere's reputation had collapsed. Vincent tried everything: discounts, special events, and a public apology. Nothing worked, because this wasn't just about bad service anymore. It was about disrespecting a legend. And in Hollywood, that's something you don't come back from. Follow Mazur Bro to see how it all ends. Some mistakes you can fix. Others, they haunt you forever. 2 months after the night La Riviere turned away Sylvester Stallone, the once iconic restaurant was barely holding on. The tables that had once been fully booked weeks in advance now sat empty. The hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, the energy of exclusivity, it was all gone. A few desperate tourists still wandered in, unaware of the scandal that had unfolded, but the real clientele, the celebrities, the executives, the socialites, had moved on. Because in Hollywood, one mistake can erase a decade of success. And this wasn't just a mistake. This was a legacy killer. The final nail in the coffin. Vincent Moreau, the owner, had done everything he could to salvage the situation. He issued multiple apologies. He fired the waiter and bartender who had ignored Stallone. He even tried rebranding, offering VIP treatment to celebrities who came in. But it didn't matter, because Stallone never responded. He didn't attack them. He didn't go on social media and rant. He just let the silence do the damage for him. And the worst part? Every time someone searched for La Riviere online, the first thing they saw wasn't the menu. It wasn't the reviews. It was the scandal. The day it all ended. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when Richard, the maitre d', walked into the restaurant and saw the inevitable. Vincent sat at a corner table, staring at a single document. A for-sale contract. The reality had finally hit. La Riviere was finished. Richard slowly approached. So this is it? Vincent didn't look up. Reservations are down 70%. Investors are pulling out. I can't afford to keep this place open. Silence. Vincent exhaled, rubbing his temples. One night. One stupid night. Richard shook his head. It wasn't just one night. It was what that night meant. Because this wasn't just about bad service. It was about who they had disrespected. And the fact that, when given the chance, they tried to buy their way out instead of owning their mistake. The final scene. 1 week later, a new sign was posted on the doors of La Riviere. Closed for renovations. Except everyone knew what that really meant. The restaurant wouldn't be coming back. At least, not under that name. Not with that reputation. And somewhere across the city, Sylvester Stallone sat back in his chair, sipping his whiskey, watching it all unfold with a knowing smirk. because he never had to lift a finger. They did it to themselves. Moral of the story? Some people forget who built the industry they profit from. And when they do, Hollywood has a way of reminding them. Follow Mazur Bro, because this won't be the last story like this.